I'm Andy Beachy on day 2 of living in the shack. I think this might be our 7th conversation around homelessness and substandard housing, and I'm with a new friend. I've just gotten to get to know, I've known his name for many years, and I've known of the organization, but this is the first time I've gotten to sit down with you, Johnny. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you do and where that's at?
Yeah. So I'm Johnny Templin. I'm Executive Director and founder of the Jessamine County Homeless Coalition. After about 10 months of pulling it together and about $175,000 in kind and monetary donations, we opened the day before Thanksgiving in 2016. So we just now finished our third full year, and services range from, we offer bed services on an emergency basis, and we got a 90-day, I call it 90-day case redneck managed program. We also offer showers, meals, and laundry for those individuals for whatever reason that don't want to stay in a shelter, or just a family in need because their washer and dryer broke down last night. So
wow.
That's kind of what
did you say, something redneck?
I call it a 90-day case, redneck case managed, because we're not official, and we don't have no fancy letters behind our name, and it's about just holding people accountable for a plan toward getting themselves back on their feet.
And it sounds like, in the best use of the redneck term, of just loving on them kind of according to what needs they have and what you're able to offer them.
Yeah. So there's, in the homeless shelter industry, there's a couple different words. We consider ourselves a regular homeless shelter. Technically, you got white flag shelters like the Hope Center in Lexington that lets, unless you do something in the facility, everybody can come in. For the most part, you can stay relatively a long period of time. And then you also have programs, and I've heard some local professionals start using the word as us with the program. We know somebody that is in a homeless state, that there's a lot of evidence-based research that says that's about 18 months worth of trauma to that individual. So we know that we're a small organization, started from nothing, 3 years old. We can't offer the services for that individual that they need the entire time. So our piece of that pie that we was led to was to focus on 90 days. Meet them where they're at, love on them, try to let them have some time to decompress and start moving toward getting themselves back on their feet. And that looks different for everybody. One of the key things in our 90-day program is when we do what we call a 5-day assessment. We ask them what was their 3 goals that they had to better themselves when they walked in the facility. And those words are important. An individual doesn't necessarily have to say job. They don't have to say house. It can be rebuilding a relationship with my child. Once they tell us that that's their goal, that becomes their goal, and they need to start working toward it. There's other aspects of it, like money savings, so that in that 90 days, if you're on point and compliant with the program, you have at least $500 saved toward moving out. No, that's not enough, but in that 90 days, if you found yourself a roommate, you can possibly be able to take a jab at trying to get back out and getting back on your own feet. We know it's not a one-time fix for everybody. That's kind of what we do there.
So you primarily work with homeless just in Jessamine County, is that correct?
If you're talking number-wise, it's about 55% of our individuals are from Jessamine County. Jessamine County's home. There is always, in any shelter that doesn't restrict from a geological.
Might be some travelers or some people that just moved into this area, or
right.
Or maybe they're in Garrett County and this is the only shelter that's taken them, or.
Correct. So when we opened, we was the largest county in the state without any type of recognizable shelter at all, no matter what that was. And there was 9 counties much smaller than us that had something. Even a Trimble County with 8,000 people had a shelter. So in our environment, those smaller communities, they try. Stanford tried to, shortly after we opened, tried to open a men's home and a women's home. Basically, it was houses that a church just had. that without much structure or organization behind it, they didn't stay open but about 9 months. But they tried, and they realized you got to be ready. When
you can be passionate about these things,
yes.
but if you don't have a clear plan and some managerial oversight, and there's risks out there, and tell us a little bit more about what have been some of the challenges and obstacles to make this work in these 3 years.
Yeah. So, well, the first thing is, as I felt the calling for God to have me work on the homeless shelter, that it technically wasn't legal in our county. Our county hadn't updated zoning requirements in over 2 decades. And so knew that was going to be a struggle. Figured we was going to have to work on some type of rezone. And as I was studying, researching, getting ready to go speak to the city commissioners for the first official time, I realized that over that 2 decades, if there was something that needed tweaked, what they did is just updated it. And so I went in and just asked them to insert wording. Don't change the whole thing. Let's not do a rezone. I need to be open before winter. Won't you just update the wording? And they literally did that and made an I-1 in our town able to be a homeless shelter. So
basically they zoned that land to allow for the facility that you were bringing in.
Correct.
That's what an I-1 means. So
yeah.
In a sense. Okay.
And now technically any P1 or I-1 could be a homeless shelter at this point in time, based on that update, that blessing that the city commissioners did for us. The other obstacle is just community education. Without being a well-endowed organization at this point in time, barely 3 years old officially. We get calls all the time. I had one yesterday where an individual just thought they seen homeless people in the area, and I don't know after the conversation if they was homeless or not. However, attributing somebody sitting down with a phone onto a light pole charging their phone as somebody that's homeless, and somebody that been to our shelter and got kicked out. When you have addiction treatment centers that do kind of the same thing. Were they
concerned about what that person was doing while they were charging their phone? I mean, that's all they were doing, charging their phone?
Yes. They just, in some of the parks and around the courthouse, there's places you can plug up and just charge. And,
sure.
And
in some ways, we can definitely empathize with families, maybe, and not, seeing folks who might make them or their kids feel uncomfortable at a park. Right. There's clear, concerns. And,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So, but what we see in the people outside of Jessamine County, first off, there's a system inside Kentucky Housing. It's called HMIS that they do. They track it anonymously with initials, but they track where individuals go from one shelter to another, and their statistics show that if it's a transient home, or if it's a shelter hopper, somebody goes from shelter to shelter for whatever reasons, they can't stay in a small town environment too long without resources that are free to them. Yes, some of them might turn into a criminal element type of thing where they end up getting drunk one night or something like that. Please edit that. But for the most part, they're of that nature, and they're not ready to step out of their situation. They're going to go where they can get some free services. And outside of our shelter in Lexington, 9 o'clock, or in Nicholsville at 9 o'clock at night, you're not getting too many services in town. So we see that those people typically stay around for a couple weeks, and then by the site, they move on in some way, shape, or fashion.
Okay, so what you're saying is whereas some urban areas have a wider range of services that can support this population with either free, affordable transportation, right, or the comfort to be able to walk in and plug in somewhere for your phone, or to just stay warm, or whatever it might be. A town the size of Nicholasville might not have as many things going on that they can lean into.
Correct. research shows that 20% of chronically homeless people, people that are outside in the elements or inside of a shelter like JCHC, 20% won't go in a shelter at all for no reason. However, the ones that, besides that, when it gets cold enough, they're going to seek some type of shelter. So in Lexington, for example, you can hop on a bus at any spot in Fayette County and ride a bus free to a shelter environment.
Wow.
They even come to Brandon Crossing.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know what they do to tell the driver, but they give them free pass to the few shelters in town. Even if you got something that's over your head, like child support or something, you can work in the Jubilee or in the New Horizons van program and anonymously make you $100 a day. Working in the van, picking up stuff around town. There's not opportunity like that here.
Yes.
And once they don't have our shelter for whatever reasons, they've got to make decisions about what they're wanting to do. So
you mentioned 20% of chronic homeless. Something that I've learned about is just that there's a small percentage of overall homeless that is chronic, and then a much larger percent, around 75% at least, that are episodic homeless. Maybe it's a few nights or it's a few weeks, and tell me, maybe of your population, what you see, and also, maybe speak towards that. And I guess what I was going to say too is, I know that there's many homeless that have jobs, and yet they're not quite, that job is not paying them enough for sustainable living environment as of yet. And
so two parts with that. You're correct. About 75% of them, of people in the homeless nature, are episodic. Life circumstances, it's just a couple weeks. In fact, scientists, research says that in a mass shelter environment, anybody that stays after 16 days in a mass shelter is likely to return to a mass shelter at some point in their life again. So
the longer you are homeless, the more likely you will get caught into it. And I can imagine that growing sense of hopelessness that might build.
So even though we started with nothing, we've always had a cognitive eye toward what that number looks like for us. And for an organization that really doesn't have in the past not too many supportive services, we've got a great track record. We've offered services to over 900 individuals. Our average resident is staying just under 20 days, so not quite the 16-day mark, but pretty darn close. And we are seeing almost 1 in 4 people that enter our 90-day program leave around the 90-day mark with housing and a source of income. So for just a spirit-led redneck type of thing, it's pretty good. I stand on that with pride. The second thing that you mentioned, where an individual's just not used to it, I'll use a recent success story. Individual come to our shelter, I guess about 2 months ago, had been to at least 2 addiction treatment residential programs that I know of, and I think had also had a sober living environment. I don't remember the exact reason, but made his way to our shelter mainly because of our staff that he knew through that walk, and came there. He was able to obtain a job, but we've got several employers around in the area. If somebody's really willing to work, we can about get them a job. I'm not talking about just fast food. There's at least 2 companies that we can get people in fairly quickly in this area. This individual stayed with us about 5 weeks, saved up enough money, didn't even really give us notice. It was he was just gone the next day. I thought something bad happened, but our director of operations, Wendy, informed me that he had an apartment, and I seen him a couple of days later walking from Dollar General with, it was kind of cute, with some household stuff, like a college kid with his trash can and stuff. He called Wendy a couple of days ago and told her that in a couple of weeks he wanted to come back and volunteer, but more importantly, how hard it was, that in his life in addiction for the last 5-6 years or longer that he just had forgot. You know, I don't know what it's like to really clean my bathroom, to clean my kitchen, and he'd just been out of that so long and in this environment by himself. But God bless him for trying, and he seems to be doing all right, and he's got a decent paying job. But it sometimes is such a long ordeal that they just forget. In a lot of formal institutions.
Wow, after that long to be able to get reoriented and go, I'm leaving this, because I imagine many of the homeless population that you encounter, they don't want to be homeless.
Correct.
They're doing what they can to get out of this situation. And I think the public's viewpoint sometimes is, well, they just that they're choosing to live on the streets, or they could find work but they don't, and whatever it might be. And would you say that that's kind of the case? Most of the people that you're encountering, they're doing the best they can to...
Yeah. So in bigger cities, like you mentioned a minute ago, that has more resources to help, there becomes a double-edged sword there where, and this is not the best wording, but there's sometimes an individual that was not the right mindset could virtually stay in some of these situations forever if they want. In our shelter, last night, we had 28 individuals in our shelter last night. 6 of those individuals well over 60, 65 years old, different circumstances. 2 individuals that are visually handicapped when you see them. So just something happened and they got back out, and they're not like us in exactly the same way. And then of the other 14, I think my number's right, 10 or 14, but 8 of those individuals have full-time jobs. And
wow.
If they've been there longer than 45
But they have full-time jobs and yet they're in a homeless shelter.
Correct. If they've been there longer than 45 days and are compliant with our 90-day program, they're saving money too. Yeah. So
well, and depending on what the wages are, I mean, I've heard that, like, you know, if you're looking at minimum wage, there's just no chance that a 40-hour job is going to get you an average, a lot of rental agreements, that's just not enough to keep your rent.
Yeah, well, even if some individual is very frugal and could make it on paying a $600 a month rent, your chances of getting a landlord to even let you in. All of them's got their own factors where they won't let your income be more than 50% of your rent be more than 50% of your income. Those barriers, that's a real issue.
And you got the deposit, and
that's a real concern. When we first came to town, if you didn't have an address to declare, our county a district court would literally put homeless on the ID. Now, I wouldn't have had a problem in my private
And you try to find a job and you got that on your ID, and you're like, nah, we're not taking you.
And if you make it past that part and you continue to survive and gain momentum to get back on your feet in a shelter, then the next thing that you come into is the barriers that's there to step out of it. Not crazy high, but deposits, rent check, or background checks, credit checks, and just a lot of individuals, if they've been in that situation a lot, they've even lost a lot of things like IDs and Social Security cards. Those barriers, the moment you get your head together, you start realizing those barriers are in the way, and they present issues.
I recently watched a fabulous documentary that just covers a lot of the issues related to homelessness. It's called United States of Tents, TENTS, and it really enlightened me in a lot of ways. So at the Jessamine County Homeless Coalition, can anyone, whether they be a family, male or female, stay?
Yeah, so we're a 3,600 square foot facility. Anybody that meets just a few requirements can stay there, and mostly that's being able to positively identify them and letting us have a little bit of control over medicines and electronic equipment that can send out videos and stuff like that. If those are really the only
What do you mean positively identify them? Make sure that the ID that they give you is truly them? Is that
well, so an ID will work, and if for some reason they don't have an ID, we have two secondary methods.
Okay, just to make sure you are who you say you are.
Correct. That sort of thing. But outside of that, just willingness to agree with some very simple household rules type of stuff, like doing your own chores, community service, being there for life skill classes when those are there a couple times a week, after that time frame, starting to save money. But yeah, anybody can walk in there. And now, like any shelter, there's individuals that gets restricted from time to time. Unless it's a very extreme case, though, even those individuals can come back and eat with our meals 3 times a day. They can come back and take a shower. They can come back and do a laundry. Only really when a danger to somebody at the shelter in one way or shape getting.
Now, you gave a number earlier. Was it 900?
Yeah, we've extended our 90-day program.
Course of 3 years.
3
you've
years.
Impacted 900 people.
We're going to see a little over 300 this year.
So that includes the amount of people that you're feeding and housing, or just housing?
Housing. Those are people that stayed in beds, 900 individuals. So that's roughly 450 people from Jessamine County. And of all those, as I said, we're 225 people that we know left our program with housing and income. And the way I'm starting to try to tweak that conversation is, so out of 225, half of them wasn't from our county. That is an economical impact of about $750,000 in spending that's probably being done in our county, and you know, I don't know the math, but they're providing to our tax base too.
Sure.
So, and then also a facility like ours, there's emergency responders typically, on average, visit a homeless person living in the elements 7 times a year. That right off the bat, that gets decreased if you're living in a shelter.
These are important numbers to keep track of
Yes.
for grants and for considering dollars and taking care of, and it costs a lot to care for those things. So 2 quick final questions. One is, you know, where do you see the future? And then the next question is, any words for those of us who want to be of assistance to what you're doing?
Yeah. So the future's looking great. We very soon in 2020 we'll be launching publicly two different supportive services. We're at a 3-year mark. If somebody goes back at the Hope Center and look at their timeline right on their website, at 38 months they introduced their first program, if you will, and it was an men's addiction related program. We're right at that mark, so it's kind of exciting to see a glimpse of what our future might be. But in 2020 we'll be launching a campaign to provide transitional housing. I call it supportive living for certain individuals. It certainly won't be enough for every individual that comes through the facility, to where those barriers are gone out of the way.
So primarily those that are dealing with substance abuse?
No, it won't be addiction related. I mean, there might be a component. I'm sorry, I kind of just jumped topic. But the supportive living, like most mature organizations, they usually have an aspect of this where an individual, once they're ready to move out of the mass shelter, they don't have to worry about credit checks, background checks, not a huge deposit, and
they're preparing to transition into independence on their own, rented an apartment, whatever it is, and so this transitional living is helping them move towards that.
In bigger cities where the services are robust, Department of HUD calls it housing first.
Yes, I know this term.
And there's even some research that shows it saves money even to take an individual and just put them right back into a single independent house, do the case management in their house. unfortunately, though, with no resources in our county before that, we had to take care of we have to triage. So it was more important to have a mass shelter for those that we couldn't reach every single day without resources to put them in housing first. So we're looking very excitedly at the transitional housing. The next aspect to that is we've networked and been real blessed with a lot of entities that related to addiction services, not just local, around the state. If a man comes to us and asks for a residential program, we can almost get him in a program regardless of insurance within a couple days. We have even got somebody in a program as quick as 2.5 hours. Addiction's not the reason why most people become homeless. It's usually something to do with some money issue, whether it's a passing of a loved one or a loss of a job. But addiction has a lot to do with why somebody, 60%, why somebody stays in home. So we've always had the use of some great residential programs, but we're going to be partnering with at least one, if not two, local facilities, bringing group supportive therapy, if you will, intensive outpatient services to the individuals in the shelter. So we're trying to slowly, as we go, to add these services that add value to their experience and give them the tools to equip them and get back out on their own.
That is so exciting. That is great. That must take quite a team and quite a board, and good for you.
Yeah, it's been blessed all the way around, but yes, it does take quite a team, very much.
Tell me, how can people, whether it be through Jessamine County Homeless Association or elsewhere, just how can they be of help?
Yeah, so
either through things they do or ideas they change, ideas they reflect on.
Certainly any individual that you see out there, even the individuals that say that they're restricted from the facility forever, if we are in the teens, we are in an emergency weather situation, and every single person, as long as they can behave that night, can come stay in our shelter at any time.
So no if you bump into someone, say, hey, can I take you to Jessamine County Homeless Coalition, or can I encourage you to go into the homeless shelter in Nicholasville?
Correct.
For safety people.
Right. And even if it's above the teens and the individual's adamant that they can't come to our shelter, our police departments will, most of the time, if they're not overstressed, will take somebody to the Brandon Crossing area, where they can now then ride a bus for free to any homeless shelter in Fayette County.
Wow.
So there's resources out there. There's great community services in our town. Community Action, the Salvation Army. I could go on. Habitat for Humanity. All of us are doing our own little piece in that. As far as connecting with the shelter, we're open 168 hours a week, plus the fundraising that goes into pulling this together, which is quite substantial. So with being based on 90% volunteers, we need volunteers. We are blessed and continue to be blessed, and we can always use more. You can notify us of your interest on that, whether it be on Facebook, which is where most people go to. We have a website. We have anything can be sent to our email, johnny@jchc.com, or just call us. The local number is 859-813-0-BED. It's 80233, and connect with that. We're always looking for, in need of staple food products and cleaning supplies, and of course like anything you would use in your house, from toilet tissue to stuff like that, and what makes all the wheels stay in motion and everything. If you feel led and are blessed, please reach out to us about financial donations. And
this is the time for it with the Bluegrass Giving Challenge.
Yes.
And it's just a simple button on your phone or on your computer, and you've heard his passion, and it's led by I know just a heart for Jesus, and God getting a hold of your heart, and putting your faith in action in this way. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I look forward to talking to you more about how Adventure Serve Ministries, with the church teams that come and serve with us, might be able to tap in the summer months or other times, spring break, fall breaks, that we're doing things. So.
You actually have already.
Oh, good, thanks. There's a lot of things going on in the summer. Sometimes it's hard for me to keep track. I'm glad that yes, that would have been Caitlin contacting you this summer. Good.
Yeah. The first year was something that I was more involved at. Knew y'all was coming, and man, did you come over with the team? And there was like 20 individuals. It was a beautiful day. But the second one, because we now have an operations director, Wendy.
Yes.
And I just happened to step in, and there was like 30 people running around last year like a little anthill, and I was like, did we get something from a hurricane or something? But it was you all doing some
and things were getting done.
Yeah.
Good.
So and that's a huge blessing. There's this whole when we opened up, we would ask for prices from contractors. I used a phrase because I was in restaurants. How much would this cost you if I was at McDonald's telling you to build it out of state for me? Our electrical price for all the electrical work needed was $32,000. God brought that to us for $800.
Volunteer labor and skilled labor.
Yeah. Not only did he bring that to us, as I was at a fold-up table with an old phone book calling electricians, a truck pulls up, and I'm assuming it's somebody I called. This guy walks in from wanting to start a Bible study in our future shelter. Revive, Todd had sent him to us. And so here I was literally calling, and God sent the man that done it for $800. Our plumbing.
Wow, praise God.
Yeah, our plumbing was well over $70,000 project. We finished that for $1,800. But it took a lot, and I used to say it back in the beginning that I really hope that about half of the churches connected with us. Well, according to the Gideon Association, there's 108 churches officially in our county right now.
Wow.
That's up over 10 since we started.
Yeah.
And if that's true, if you count the meals, money, time, every single way, we've at least got 55 churches that are connected with us. So a lot of them are small, but
or they just might pop in once over the year or a couple times or whatnot. But that is wonderful. That is wonderful, and I love just the story of these needs being addressed by God's people and their skills and their potential, and that's the joy of being in ministry, isn't it? And to correlate it all. So thank you so much for the dialogue, and this conversation's been brought through sponsors. Thrillsville Adventure Park out in the Red River Gorge and Red River Gorge Cabin Rentals, as well as Auto Alternative in Nicholasville and MedSave right here in Wilmore. As well West Banco here in Wilmore. So please support those businesses, check them out, and thank you for tuning in. And please stop by the shack and consider doing what you can to give towards this effort of caring for homeless and substandard housing, either through Jessamine County Homeless Coalition or Adventure Serve Ministries.